This is what a meltdown looks like. Not a tantrum, not a disagreement. A full-blown, bipartisan, multi-senator evisceration of the Secretary of Defense. Senator Tammy Duckworth, an Iraq War veteran who lost her legs flying a helicopter in combat, just told Pete Hegseth that he is too inexperienced, too incompetent, and too much of a yes man to understand the real threats facing the country.
I don't know if this is because you are too inexperienced and incompetent to understand the real threats facing our country, or if it's because you are just an unqualified yes man who can't tell the president how to keep Americans safe.
She told him that he has created a hostile command environment where no one wants to serve as his chief of staff. That he blew a $1 billion mission against the Houthis, losing 2 F-18s and 7 Reaper drones. That he sent classified operational information over signal to chest thump in front of his wife, who has no security clearance, risking service member lives. That he is pulling the military away from facing foreign enemies who say death to America and putting troops with weapons aimed at Americans.
You're pulling the military away from facing foreign enemies who literally say things like death to America. And you're putting troops with weapons aimed at Americans.
She told him that if he wants to be the DHS secretary, he can apply for that job when he's fired from this one due to his incompetence. But Duckworth was not alone. Earlier, Senator Mark Kelly asked Hegseth if political allegiance to Trump is a requirement for serving the nation. Hegseth called it a silly question. He said they all support the Constitution. He never said no.
Congressman, you know what a silly question that is.
But silly enough to warrant a very straightforward answer, yes or no?
We all support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
You know what?
Kelly told him he's not worthy of his attention or his questions. He told him he's an embarrassment, unfit to lead, and that bipartisan members of Congress have called for his resignation. He told him to get the hell out.
And there's been bipartisan members of Congress that have called for your resignation. You should just get the hell out and let somebody competently lead this department.
Then Senator Jackie Rosen asked about the deployment of 4,700 troops to Los Angeles against the wishes of the governor. She asked if Hegseth had authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters. Hegseth dodged. She asked again. He dodged again. She asked about cyber tools to investigate protesters. He said no. She asked about shooting unarmed protesters. He laughed.
Have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh.
She reminded him that his own predecessor, Secretary Esper, was asked by Trump to shoot at protesters' legs and refused. She said Esper had more guts and balls than Hegseth. Then Senator Duckworth finished him. This is not a hearing. This is a funeral for a Secretary of Defense who has lost the confidence of everyone who matters. Let's watch. I'll break it down.
Do you think political allegiance to Trump is a requirement for serving our nation, either in uniform or a civilian in the department?
I'm incredibly proud, as are millions of Americans.
No. Not today, Hegseth. Yes or no?
Congressman, you know what a silly question that is.
But silly enough to warrant a very straightforward answer, yes or no?
We all support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
You know what? I'm not going to waste my time anymore. You're not worthy of my attention or my questions. You're an embarrassment to this country. You're unfit to lead. And there's been bipartisan members of Congress that have called for your resignation. You should just get the hell out and let somebody competently lead this department.
Mr. Chairman, do we not have any decorum in here?
Thank you very much. I yield my time.
Gentleman yields back. And I would urge everybody to remember and maintain a decorum suitable for this chamber with their further comments. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee, Dr. Desjardins.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I said in your hearing, when you had your confirmation hearing, that my biggest concern with you at the helm was the potential use of the military in ways that contradict the Constitution or that taint what I hope we all want, which is an apolitical military. And when I asked you about whether you would accept an order that was actually given to your predecessor, Secretary Esper, Trump's SecDef, to deploy active duty troops against unarmed protesters and to, in Secretary Esper's words, shoot at them, shoot at their legs. You said this was all theoretical. Here we are, a few months later, you've deployed 4,700 troops to Los Angeles and against the wishes of the governor. And my colleague across the aisle was right. It is the first time since 1965 that we have deployed Guard troops without the permission of the governor. In all the instances he laid out, the president had sent in the military to protect protesters, not against the protesters. So you may dismiss it, but I feel like this is a fundamental issue of American democracy. If you love your country and you want an apolitical military, then it should be the last resort, not the first resort in our country to use them. So to get to the non-theoretical, have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%.
at law
Arrest those
enforcement
people.
officers.
Throw them in the jail. 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's their job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today? It's a yes or no thing. Authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man. List it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual, did you authorize them to do that?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They are
okay, so say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please, yes or no?
As I've said time and time again through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement,
do they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest?
who are trying to do their job, deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous administration.
So they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As we've stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily detain and hand over to ICE. But there's no arresting going on. And you know this better than you're trying to play political games. There's no arresting of U.S. personnel.
Of the U.S. military against members of the protest. Have you authorized U.S. military cyber tools to investigate people participating in these protests? Yes or no?
Certainly in no way that I'd be aware of.
Okay, that's good. I love that answer. That's great. Have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country, who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God. So your former predecessor, I guess that's not enough for you. Okay, on Iran. I don't think there's a debate. There's like a cat fight going on in your own party about whether to go after Iran. Have you commissioned any day after planning? So any force protection, any use of ground troops in Iran, any cost assessments? Because I don't think we doubt what we can do as a country in the attack. It's the day after with Iraq and Afghanistan that so many of us have learned to be so deeply concerned about. Have you authorized day after planning?
As I've said, we have plans for everything, Senator.
Okay.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In response to my colleague from Oklahoma, I believe the Secretary of Defense has just responded last week and admitted that the $1 billion mission that he led against the Houthis, who do not have a navy, has not restored the transit of U.S. flag commercial vessels through the Red Sea, and in fact has resulted in the loss of 2 F-18 Hornets to the tune of $60 million apiece, as well as, I believe the last count was 7 Reaper drones to the tune of another $200 million. You are blowing through money like my fellow cadets and I did in our first Liberty after basic camp. Luckily, I didn't end up with a questionable tattoo. Your failures, Mr. Secretary, since you've taken office has been staggering. You sent classified operational information over Signal to chest thump in front of your wife, who, by the way, has no security clearance, risking service member lives in the process. You blew the $1 billion fight against the Houthis, whom, again, as my colleague says, has no navy, and yet you lost all of those aircraft. You've created such a hostile command environment that no one wants to serve as your chief of staff or work with you in other senior DoD leadership roles. But what we should all be talking about, more than all of this, is that you have an unjustified, un-American misuse of the military in American cities, pulling resources and attention away from core missions to the detriment of the country, the warfighters, and yes, the war fighting that you claim to love. I don't know if this is because you are too inexperienced and incompetent to understand the real threats facing our country, or if it's because you are just an unqualified yes man who can't tell the president how to keep Americans safe. You are focusing on renaming bases for Confederate generals. You said just now to Senator King that to a man and to a woman, we would rather be associated with the old Confederate names. Well, I am one of those women. I served at Fort Rucker, Alabama, a base that was named for a traitor who took arms against the United States of America, led troops who killed Americans. It was renamed for Mike Novosel, a Medal of Honor recipient, who in his citation for the Medal of Honor includes that he saved 29 American lives, to include hovering backwards in a helicopter towards an enemy bunker where a wounded American was laying and saved that person, including after being taken fire himself. I know a little something about what it takes to fly a helicopter when you've been hit by enemy fire. That was heroic. I'd rather be associated with Mike Novosel than a failed Confederate traitor. I don't know whether you are inexperienced or too incompetent, but I wonder when you will actually focus on our nation's warfighting mission. We know that California is just a deliberate, systematic, political, and dangerous campaign led by you. We should not be using our military to play cops against Americans. General Kane, as chairman, a key part of your job is to coordinate military planning across the joint force. Is the department currently incorporating into any military plans expanding the use of the reserve forces to include the National Guard or active duty troops to support domestic law enforcement, including in other locations in the United States?
Senator, you know, we careful.
No, General.
Well, it's not really a yes or no question, Madam Senator. We plan all kinds of different things.
I think it is a yes or no question.
I'm not aware of anything, but the reason why I'm answering is the tags may be looking at something that I'm not aware of.
What are you doing at your level? You're not aware of that happening at your level? Because we know that on his first day, President Trump directed U.S. Northern Command to revise its unified command plan to add new planning requirements to combat, and I quote, criminal activities. A series of follow-up executive orders continue to redirect DoD priorities to supporting domestic law enforcement, including one in April that tells DoD, and I quote, use national security assets for law and order. In other words, do law enforcement's job. I'd like to enter these executive orders into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered.
Secretary Hegseth, you say you are focused on warfighting and warriors. These are your words. Yet you are diverting untold DoD resources and attention to a fundamentally non-military mission of domestic policing. Across the country, we have qualified police officers who are trained for that mission. They know those streets better than the Marines you deploy to Los Angeles, who normally focus on the Indo-Pacific. And you recently approved 700 more troops in 3 other states to do admin and logistics works for ICE. You say all of this is valuable training, but I would much rather have our troops do tough, realistic training relevant to high-end combat. Instead of typing in spreadsheets for ICE, they should be conducting live fire maneuver exercises. Instead of patrolling American neighborhoods and standing in front of federal buildings, they should be rehearsing call for fire missions. We have local police who can stand in front of those federal buildings. And the list of distractions goes on. You are encouraging the DoD workforce to go work for DHS in increasing numbers. You're pulling the military away from facing foreign enemies who literally say things like death to America. And you're putting troops with weapons aimed at Americans. Mr. Secretary, let the military get back to its real job. Stop forcing them to do DHSs. And if you want to be DHS Secretary, maybe you can apply for that job when you're fired from this one due to your incompetence.
There is a word for what happened in this hearing, and that word is evisceration. Senator Mark Kelly started by asking the simplest question imaginable. Is political allegiance to Trump a requirement for serving the nation? Pete Hegseth called it a silly question. He said they all support the Constitution, but he never said no. He never said that loyalty to the Constitution comes before loyalty to any president. He never said that the men and women in uniform swear an oath to the Constitution, not to the commander-in-chief. Kelly had heard enough. He told Hegseth he is not worthy of his attention or his questions. He told him he is an embarrassment, unfit to lead. He told him that bipartisan members of Congress have called for his resignation. He told him to get the hell out. Senator Jackie Rosen followed. She asked about the deployment of 4,700 troops to Los Angeles against the wishes of the governor. The first time since 1965 that Guard troops have been deployed without the governor's permission. She asked if Hegseth had authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters. Hegseth dodged. He said protesters throwing concrete should be arrested. Rosen pressed. She asked about cyber tools to investigate protesters. Hegseth said no. She asked about shooting unarmed protesters. Hegseth laughed. Rosen reminded him that his own predecessor, Secretary Esper, was asked by Trump to shoot at protesters' legs. Esper refused. He wrote it in his book. Rosen said Esper had more guts and balls than Hegseth. She told him that his poo-pooing of the question shows he doesn't understand who we are as a country. Then Senator Tammy Duckworth took the floor. She is an Iraq War veteran. She lost her legs flying a helicopter in combat. She knows what it takes to serve. She listed Hegseth's failures. The billion-dollar mission against the Houthis. The Houthis do not have a navy. He lost 2 F-18s and 7 Reaper drones. $400 million. He sent classified operational information over Signal to chest thump in front of his wife, who has no security clearance, risking service member lives. He has created such a hostile command environment that no one wants to serve as his chief of staff. She said she doesn't know whether he is too inexperienced and incompetent to understand the real threats, or just an unqualified yes man who can't tell the president how to keep Americans safe. She confronted him on Confederate base names. Hegseth had said that to a man and to a woman, they would rather be associated with the old Confederate names. Duckworth said she served at Fort Rucker, named for a traitor who took arms against the United States. It was renamed for Mike Novosel, a Medal of Honor recipient who saved 29 American lives, hovering backwards in a helicopter towards an enemy bunker while taking fire. She knows a little something about flying a helicopter when you've been hit by enemy fire. She would rather be associated with Novosel than a failed Confederate traitor. Then she turned to the misuse of the military. She noted that on his first day, President Trump directed Northern Command to revise its plans to combat criminal activities. Executive orders tell DoD to use national security assets for law and order. Hegseth is diverting untold resources to domestic policing. He approved 700 troops to do admin and logistics work for ICE. She would much rather have troops doing live fire maneuver exercises than typing spreadsheets. She would rather have them rehearsing call for fire missions than patrolling American neighborhoods. She said he is pulling the military away from facing foreign enemies who say death to America and putting troops with weapons aimed at Americans. She told him to let the military get back to its real job. Stop forcing them to do DHS's job. And if he wants to be the DHS secretary, he can apply for that job when he's fired from this one due to his incompetence. Duckworth yielded. The hearing moved on. But the message was clear. Hegseth has lost the confidence of the Senate. He has lost the confidence of veterans. He has lost the confidence of anyone who believes in an apolitical military. He is too inexperienced, too incompetent, too much of a yes man. He has tainted the military. He has risked service member lives. He has failed. And if he continues, he will be fired. Not if, when.